Hello, everyone. It's Phil Jacobus. I'm here at my home in Woodstock, New York this week. Today is Monday, August 17th, and it's 11 a.m. in the morning. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you an interview that I recorded last week when I was at my office in New York City with Dave Francoeur. Dave is a very interesting guy, very knowledgeable about what's happening with respect to collaborative communities and the right to repair and so forth, and has a very broad experience. But before we go to that previously recorded interview, let's take a look at some stories that appeared in the news today on Healthcare Business News Online. You see here, there is a story about how rideshare programs that are instituted by hospitals result in less and earlier arrivals of patients and more efficient use of the MR systems. This was a study done by Penn Medicine retroactively, and it's an interesting statistic. Also, we see here that the National Institute of Health, I think this is a brilliant idea. They're coming up with an open source database of images that relate to COVID. This way, hospitals can compare their image with the image in the open source database, and it will help to indicate whether or not that patient has COVID-19 or not. So those are some stories. And as always, I encourage you to sign up for our online news. It's free, and you certainly won't regret it. So here we are. We're here to welcome Mr. Dave Francoeur. Dave is the Senior Vice President with Tech Knowledge Associates, commonly known as TKA, for those of you who can see the shirt. So Dave, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Pleasure and an honor to be here.
Dave is one of the most interesting, knowledgeable, and well-connected guys in the industry, so we're lucky to have him here today. Dave, I know about TKA, but for those of our audience who do not, give us the from 5,000 feet in the air. Tell me about TKA.
Sure, great. So I think one of the greatest things about TKA is it's actually owned by an organization that was started. It's called the Innovation Institute. And the Innovation Institute was actually started by some people that used to work in a regular hospital that saw all kinds of opportunities for improvements, initiatives, innovations that would help healthcare in general, patients. And so they started this organization where, I guess to put it frankly, is you have the opportunity to take an idea, put it on a napkin. That napkin, if it's accepted, would then be put through the process where it would go all the way to a product that would go to the retail market, and it would then be put out on the street. We've actually got 17 products that have gone to market today that have enhanced healthcare for patients. And so the impetus behind that takes 3 to 7 years to make that happen. And so they wanted to come up with ways to generate revenue to keep that initiative going. And so they've created a bunch of other companies, one of them being TKA, which provides clinical engineering services, healthcare technology management services to healthcare environments, where we will manage all of the medical equipment and make sure that it's serviced, managed properly in a healthcare environment on an ongoing basis. And so part of our revenue, the money that we make, is to help support the initiative of the Innovation Institute, which I think is a pretty great endeavor.
Now tell me, do you have staff at hospitals? How does that work? Do they work for you, or do they work for the hospital? Do you support them? What's the story there?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So our corporate headquarters is actually in La Palma, California, where we have your typical, your regulatory compliant, your ISO initiatives under quality. We have procurement, we have HR. So we have a corporate function out of La Palma, which supports the regional and local biomed. So there's a regional director that will take care of a larger geographic territory. And then we have the on-site manager, which represents and supports the local technicians that range everywhere from a typical biomed one up to a supervisor facilitating the service and management of all the medical equipment there on site.
Do
And in
those
most
local,
cases, for our,
forgive me, do those local biomedical guys work for your company, or do they
yeah,
work for?
yes, I'm sorry. They are all employees of TKA. We could offer where we just manage the people that are their employees, but most of our programs are the employees actually work for TKA, yes.
So then your staff is right on the front line, or has been, of the pandemic. Uh, what what comments do you have about that? What challenges have they faced, and how has your company overcome those challenges?
Yeah, so interesting question. And I do think that there are a lot of challenges that are going on in the industry and healthcare right now. From TKA's perspective, I would take it from various levels, if you would. On a corporate level, we're not allowed to travel. We're not able to go out and visit our clients. We're not able to get more ingrained and involved with what's going on. And so that makes it a challenge from a growth perspective, as well as continuing to make sure from a customer satisfaction perspective that we're meeting the needs and we're firing on all cylinders. So that makes it a little bit more challenging. And it provides opportunities like this for us to find other ways to communicate. On a local level, we've had a couple instances where we've had some of our employees that have actually been impacted by COVID and actually have gotten the pandemic disease, if you will. And so they've had to stay out of work for a period of time, which has created sometimes shortages of individuals. We've also been concerned that we wouldn't want to wipe out an entire department. And so we've gotten proactive and we've cut the shifts in halves or even in quarters sometimes, so that they will never have the opportunity to be working alongside of each other and hopefully not share it with each other. So we've tried to minimize the risk associated with the exposure opportunities to our staff. And so on that side, that's what we're doing to help and manage the situation, if you will. On the other side, where we've had to rely on others to come in and help us, whether vendors or ISO service partners, we've had to get creative in terms of can they come in, will they come in, and how would they come in, and us managing that process. And so we've had to work closely with them around PPE equipment, as well as managing their coming on site. In other instances where the vendors just refuse or not allowed to come on site, we've had to get creative and work closely with them to make sure that we have the support in terms of technology, parts, and support in terms of our being our hands for their eyes as we FaceTime or Skype or Zoom meetings, so that we can fix things and do what we need to do.
Okay, so that's an innovative idea. The first time I've heard of separating the groups. Now, we don't have a lot of time left, but one of the things that you're well known for in the industry is your involvement in the discussions between companies and the FDA, and the concept of the collaborative community and the meetings that have taken. Can you give us a little update on how that's going, the collaborative community, the relations with the FDA and independent service or service, non-OEM service?
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate the opportunity, because I think this is important. You know, everybody's familiar with the right to repair, and we saw your great video that you did with Mr. Kerwin, which was a great thing. But to this particular situation that we're dealing with, the FDA has actually, because of MITA, Philips, and Adviomed pulling out of the community, the FDA community that was first established, there has been a little bit of a recourse, which I believe is going to be a spring forward opportunity for us. So the FDA has pulled themselves out of the process to ensure that the group is truly a group that is together, not initiated or driven by the FDA, who eventually hopefully becomes a participant in the process. We are in the process now of, we've taken the word collaborative out of our title, because we have not been a sanctioned collaborative effort by the FDA as of today. We have decided to go through a process where we would ask for that distinction from the FDA, and we're in the process of going through that. So with having the OEMs pulled out and having the FDA having taken a back seat in terms of being an active participant at this point, we're regrouping, we're reestablishing our charter, we're reestablishing the 4 subgroups that are being very proactive in terms of the way we're getting the community together, if you will, We're reestablishing the 5 primary categories of participation, which are patient advocates, industry advocates, OEMs, ISOs, and HDOs. And those will all be have more engaged representation, if you will. And we're hoping to take it to the next level and continue what we were doing, all the while on a parallel, looking to build a true application to the FDA to get the collaborative moniker, if you will, and take this thing to the next level. So I'm very excited that even though we're taking a step back, we're actually taking 2 steps forwards to get us to where we need to be, and tie that into the right to repair industry, and work collaboratively, no pun intended, to help us get to where we want to be for our industry.
If the OEMs do not participate, I think the idea, it all revolves around service, if I understand it correctly. And hospitals, companies like yours, and independent companies want to be able to offer service that's an alternative to the OEM service. If the OEMs don't agree and or participate and or cooperate, then how can there be any momentum forward for your cause at all?
So the answer to that question is twofold. One is, first of all, we have every expectation to believe that OEMs will participate. Which OEMs may be part of the issue. It may not be the big ones that we all would hope for, but there will be OEMs that will participate. Secondly, in candor, what I believe is going to happen is we are, as a group, as a community, we are making sure that we are doing this as non-biased as possible, that we are going into this thing truly with the impetus. And let me be really clear about this. The drivers that have initiated this opportunity for us have been around quality and safety as it relates to servicing and maintaining medical equipment. And so all the efforts that we're doing are with that as a focus, and what's driving us. And so while we will have OEM participation, maybe not the exact ones that we had hoped for, it will be representative. Secondarily, what we hope is through this process, we are going to create best practice white papers and other data to support the initiatives that we're doing. And the hope is that it'll drive itself, that people will see the value. They'll understand that by doing certain steps, it'll demonstrate that they're performing at a certain level in terms of safety and quality of maintaining medical equipment. And by virtue of having all this happen, it'll force it to kind of be a natural evolution that people will just have to get in and subscribe to.
I see. Do you think there's any chance at all that the FDA will require that all manufacturers cooperate with at least the healthcare providers?
That's my hope and desire. I don't really have I can't speak to it specifically, but my hope and desire is that either one, that happens, and or at a minimum that we've demonstrated through the community that what we've put together is a really good first effort in terms of demonstrating safe and quality, and that regardless of where your paycheck comes from, that if you can meet these certain objectives, you've demonstrated what it is that you need to say that you're a qualified individual to be working on medical equipment. That's what we hope to derive out of this.
Right. I know that the OEMs feel strongly that not having a skilled person servicing a piece of equipment is a challenge to safety. And that, of course, this has been the big discussion point around this whole issue, but it will be interesting to see what happens. And Dave, you are one interesting and knowledgeable and charming guy, and I'm glad that you joined me today. Thank you very much. And
thank you. Really appreciate that.
And before you go, any pictures of your grandchildren? You know, you don't look old enough to be a grandfather. So
I don't have pictures, but if you want, I can bring them around because they're just right outside the other room here listening in.
Yeah, why don't you let's prove that you really are a grandfather. Just say hello.
You guys, come here real quick. Look at this is Carrie.
Hi.
She's 2 years old. Can you say hi?
Hi.
Hey, Caleb, come here. This is Caleb. Caleb is 6. Can you guys say hi? Say hi,
Can you
Mr.
salute?
Bill.
Can you salute me?
There you go.
All right. Well, it's so nice to meet you, and you really are a grandfather, so I take it back.
Thank you, sir.
For joining us.
It's always a pleasure. It's great to talk to you. Thank you.